Here we are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sunday. Unless, of course, you're like in Australia or somewhere in the East, and then welcome to Monday. Anyway, it's time for Satsang, my favorite time of the week, and I had the idea this morning of talking about transcendence. It was actually brought to mind. A friend of mine asked me to write a part of a contribution to a book he's writing about transcendence and presence. So I thought, gee, a great subject to just start with on satsang, because the transcendent is what we are, is what we are aiming at. It's the transcendent that is what is being pointed at by all non-dual teachings, if they're the real thing. I even looked it up in the dictionary, the meaning of it, in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, because it's always a good place to start. Because remember, oftentimes we have words, they come to mean something to us, right? And the word had a different origin. It has a deeper meaning, and in this case, it does have a deeper meaning than most people think. So transcendent means exceeding usual limits, extending or lying beyond the limits of ordinary experience. And in the philosophy of Kant, being beyond all the limits of all possible experience and knowledge. The transcendent is that which is beyond all possible experience and human knowledge. So how in the world is it that we can explore something that is in fact beyond human knowledge, right? Beyond what can be experienced. Now, the first step to me is to recognize that there is this dimension, for lack of a better word, that is beyond all of our comprehension. It is beyond any kind of human categorization or conceptualization. It cannot be known, right? Now, doesn't that seem strange that we're attempting to approach something that can't be known? But when you see that everything that is known has built-in definitions and limitations, it's always relative to something else. There's nothing absolutely stable about human knowledge, much as we'd like to think there is. And in our pursuits, both spiritually and scientifically and socially, are to find that which is absolutely true. This is it. I can put a stake in the ground here. But when you look closely, you see that there's nothing in the human kingdom that fits that bill. Nothing at all. So how do you transcend? How then is it possible, or let's first ask, is it possible to transcend all knowledge? Well, from a practical point of view, living our everyday lives, the answer would be no. You have to. It's not like I can just ignore the fact that red lights mean stop, right? Or the street sign when I'm trying to get someplace, right? I can't. That can't be ignored. But that's not transcendent. The everyday experience, our mundane experience, is just convention, right? And as long as we don't mistake the relative for the absolute, it doesn't cause any suffering. It doesn't cause any problem. The fact that I have to stop at a red light does not cause me any suffering. It's completely neutral. And so we don't have to concern ourselves with it. But when I start defining myself in relative terms, right? I am like this, or I am like that, or I am this, or I am that, and it boils down to knowledge, some kind of bit of knowledge, well, now I do create suffering because I have put an arbitrary definition, an arbitrary limitation on myself. So what then is transcendent? People talk about transcendent states of mind or transcendent states of consciousness, and they're always referring to some kind of special experience, some kind of completely unusual experience that is beyond all the experience you've had. But if by definition transcendence is beyond all experience, then no matter how intense or beautiful or wonderful the experience is, it's not the transcendent. So what would be that which is beyond all experience? It's either nothing at all, and there is no such thing, or it has to be something that exists but is not knowable, is not experienceable, right? Is not perceivable in any way. Now, what fits that particular definition? What is something that cannot be perceived, cannot be known, cannot be experienced, and yet it is self-evident that it exists? Anybody know the answer? The answer is you. Everything in the entire universe is perceivable, is knowable, is experienceable, except you. You can't know yourself. You can't experience yourself. You've never even seen your own face. You've seen images of it, which is always somebody else's perception of you, but you have never actually seen yourself. And in our minds, we've just gotten kind of used to this idea of the self-image being this picture that I've seen, like, me on YouTube right now, right? Oh, that's me, right? But that's never been my experience, ever, right? I've never been able to go, oh, there I am, right? What's your actual experience of yourself? Just stop for a minute. What is your actual experience? There's an awareness of thoughts, and there's the thoughts going by, and then there's awareness of those thoughts. Right? There's feelings and emotions going by, and there's an awareness of those feelings and emotions. And of course, there's this constant flow of sensation, and there's an awareness of those sensations. Right? But is that which is aware, consciousness, cognizance, whatever you want to call it, right? Is that actually experienced? Right? Doesn't every experience by definition have to be something that appears in perception? So what is your quote unquote experience of yourself? You just are. There is no experience of you. You don't have an experience of you. You have experiences of representations of you, and you have all sorts of different kinds of experience. But the one having the experience is not experienced, ever. Can't be. And of course, isn't that you? Isn't that actually you? There's not something else in there experiencing. Now, the only reason this seems arcane or difficult to grasp is because we're so used to thinking of ourselves in terms of some form, some image, some characteristic. Right? Going all the way back to the original belief that we all got saddled with, which is I am the body. And I began to think of me holding a self-image of myself that was this image that was constantly being presented to me from the environment. My parents told me who I was and when I was born and all these things, all of which was hearsay. They gave me the whole story as if it was the actual fact, when in fact it was just their perception of you making an appearance to them, right? But of course, your experience was they made an appearance to you. You were there and these guys showed up. That was your actual experience. Going all the way back to there and to right now, we have been thinking of ourselves in terms of the ideas that were handed to us by first our parents and our culture, schools, churches, media, all of this stuff. We accepted it as a fact, right? And so when we begin to move ourselves towards this place that is beyond all knowing, right, it can be a bit of a struggle to kind of lay aside all these ideas that we've accumulated over time. But when you look at them, every single one of those makes reference to some perceivable form, some shape, some object, something, right? But never, ever does it describe your actual experience of being, which is beyond experience. I don't have a word for it other than being. You just are. You don't experience being, you are being. And it's just something to ponder, to take it in and contemplate. Because to see this as true sets you free from all limitations, all judgments, all prejudices, all ignorance, all doubt. Sets you free from all the ideas you've been holding about yourself, and instead leaves you just with this sense of permanence, the sense of the absolute. Now from here, when it's no longer yourself, your interaction with all the relative stuff of the world becomes very fluid, very natural, very easy, right? Because there's nothing in you to resist it, right? Because even resistance is a learned behavior, characteristic of the body, and when it's no longer regarded as yourself, it's just an activity that takes place, something going on in the nervous system, and is completely irrelevant to your being, other than it is what you are experiencing, but it is never the experiencer. I'm going to leave it at that. That is transcendence. To even ponder that we could conceive of that which is beyond all experience and knowledge is really quite amazing, that we can do that. Right? And the reason we can do that is because transcendence is your actual nature. And so knowingness and beingness and feelingness and happiness are all inherent in this absolute, indefinable, inexperienceable, ineffable self, which is you. I'll leave it at that. And let's go to the phones, Bob. Good to see you all here. It's so much fun. Rosario in Madrid, Roberto from Madrid, but not in Madrid right now. Hello from the beach, last day of summer holidays. Yay. Well, not yay for the last day, of course. Just yay, good to see you. And you're still on summer holidays, so be there until you're not. Robbie in Romania. Hello, Robbie. There's Penny. Dear Sifu and everyone, you are heard is what I learned today from our practice. I had spoken for the very first time ever since I can speak. Thank you so much, Sifu. You are simply amazing. I wouldn't be amazing at all if what I was saying wasn't amazing. So don't praise the radio for the song, okay? And the song that comes through this particular radio is you. It's coming through you, right? And you know, just these techniques, these ways of learning to cut through all of the nonsense that we were taught about ourselves, all the limitations, and eventually come face to face with yourself, right? Which is the unknowable and ineffable. But you just are. Lovely. Hello, Lisa. Francis King. Hello, sir. Hi, GP. Hope you're doing well. I am. It seems there's much confusion and misunderstanding about what is meant by the world is an illusion. Can you clarify what this means as you understand it? Yes. The real confusion is about the meaning of the word illusion, right? My idea of what something is, right, is what I experience. Right? Now, if my idea of what something is, my concept of it, my belief about it, is not in fact what it actually is, there's an illusion. That's an illusion. And I will act according to that because I have misperceived the nature of whatever it is we're considering. Right? And so I'm living as if my idea about it was actually it, and it isn't. A great example is a mirage in the desert, right? You look out there and you see, you see this, wonderful place, this oasis, right? And people are swimming and dancing and sipping on Mai Tais, and you're dying of thirst walking through the desert, right? Well, the desert is there, right? The heat is there. The blazing sun is there. The thirst is there. The sweat is there. The heat rising off the sand, distorting the air, that is there. But the mirage is not. It is a projection of the mind onto what is actually there. Now, when we're talking about it, we talk about it in just very practical terms. We want to know what things actually are because that's how I will experience a harmonious life. If I'm living according to a conceptual model that doesn't actually match reality, there's just no way in the world I'm going to actually be able to live in harmony, right? I'm always going to be making mistakes, right? Things are always going to be off. And I'm going to be confused about it because I'm so convinced that my view of it, my version of it, my concept of it is actually it. But it is under no obligation to conform itself to my view of it, right? Life is not at all obligated to me to show up the way I think it should. The smarter way, the way of the Tao, is to show up with life as it is. But you have to know what that is. So that's just on the most practical level, right? The more we know about the way things are, the more harmonious our life inevitably is, because we won't be fighting with life. We'll be flowing with it because it's the constant, not me, in this context, right? And so my job is to basically go along with the nature of life. Or as they say in Zen, it's easier to ride a horse in the direction it's going. Right? So now let's take it to another level, right? The more non-dual, the more deeply spiritual level. The world is an illusion. There is a reality, right? There is something that absolutely is, right? That's what reality means. It's true. It actually exists. It is not an appearance of something else. Right? It is not a perception of something else. It is not a perception at all. It is what is, and that we perceive. My example of the desert was real, right? It was really there. The mirage was not, right? But we can take that a step forward. When you say the world is an illusion, right? The world, as you conceive it to be, is completely an illusion. There's simply no way the human mind can fathom the enormous interdependence, interreaction, complexity, subtlety, and nuance that we see around us in everything. We look at it from one particular place of perception based on these particular senses, but that's the model. We live that model. We agree on that model. And we say, well, this is the way the world is. But of course it isn't. This is only how you think. And so it doesn't matter how you see the world, you're going to be living in the illusion of the world. Now, the fundamental premise in non-duality is that the world is not an externally existent entity. That in fact, you are simply seeing the self. All is Brahman self. Everything is absolute being. When I regard what I am perceiving as external and separate from me and imbue it with a self that is independent existence, I am living the illusion because it doesn't have independent existence. So I think that this tree is, and then I have ideas about what that tree is. Right? Even language does it. Right? I think that tree exists. The characteristics of that tree exist. It's independent, completely independent of myself. It lives its own complete external objective existence, subject-object relationship. Non-duality says that is not true. And therein lies the whole crux of it. If that's the case, the word world is simply the sum total of all your experience, right? That's all it is. It's an abstraction, right? Because we can't describe the world every time we want to use the term, so we say the world. I say the world, you hear the word world, you apply to it the meaning that you have acquired, which may be similar or different than mine, and now we're having a conversation about this concept. What is the actual world itself? The reality is the only thing that exists is the self. There isn't anything else. And when I think there is, I've created that illusion, right? I've created the mirage in the desert. But even the desert does not exist independently of the self. Now, I will say independently of myself, but that can only be true if, when I say myself, I mean the self, right? Pure, unbridled, unfiltered consciousness, pure awareness. But most of the time, the I refer to when I say myself is an object in the world. I'm one of many selves, things in this world. The reality is that consciousness and all that is perceived is undifferentiated. It is one. And that one is myself. And so I'm simply, literally looking at myself. The way Shankara put it, because the world is an illusion, only Brahman is real, was an understanding of the Brahman caste in the Hindu religion forever. Right? The world is an illusion, only Brahma is real. Brahma the creator, Brahma the absolute. Shankara came along and said that yes, the world is an illusion. Yes, only Brahman is real, and then added, Brahman is the world. The idea that there are two, that there's this absolute being, God, Brahman, Shiva, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter what you call it, those are just names, that absolute being, absolute pure existence, right? Which by its nature, as that which absolutely is, everything else must be an appearance of that. For it's just an appearance. And look, everything is just an appearance. This tree is an appearance of smaller cells, which is an appearance of smaller atoms, which is an appearance, on and on and on it goes. Everybody looking for, well, there's got to be something there, right? Something that absolutely is and is not an appearance of something else. It cannot be an infinite regression. There must be a point, right? Someplace. To the scientist, it's some kind of they're beyond particles. It's just some kind of field or something. But for the non-dual, it is consciousness itself. That is the essential. And so the world is myself. If by myself, I mean the self. That which is, everything else must be a manifestation of it, draws its existence from it, and therefore the world as according to the idea that it exists independently from me, is an illusion. We have projected external existence upon that which is not external. And that projection of external existence is the illusion. Right? When that falls away, you see the world is illusion. Only Brahma is real. Brahma is the world. Does that answer it for you, Francis? I think I covered that in in length. Took a while. Ava, namaste. Gigi, everybody hear Satsang? At last Satsang, time came. So good to be with you. When I do get to Europe, I will probably do it a little bit earlier for my sake. So, because I know it's late for some of you. It's like 9 and even 10 o'clock for some of you. Sean, hey GP, I hope you're doing amazing. I am. Part 1. If I am everyone and everyone else is I too, then if I wake up, doesn't everyone else too? Part 2. If not, then what is the I that wakes up? How can it be separate enough not to influence everyone else that is perceived through awareness? Wonderful question, and a very mature question. So those of you who may be new, I'm already getting questions that are really kind of more advanced. So it's okay. Just kind of take it in. If this is like totally new to you, totally bizarre, I will be happy to bring it down to whatever level, not condescending. I'm going to bring it down to you like Yahweh from on high, right? We're just different words, right? Because it takes a while to wrap ourselves around these very, very subtle, but very, very profound ideas and insights. So you cannot make the claim or come to understand that I am everyone, the allness, the oneness of all things, right? Until you have first dismantled the sense of I as being a separate self. You can't do it, right? So don't even try. People who talk about oneness and I want to be one with everything, you can't. That I cannot be one with everything, right? It's by its very definition, it is two, right? When Muji in his Enlightenment experience was talking with Papa G, his master, and he said, and Papa G had asked him what he wanted, and he said he wanted to know God. Right? That was his background from Jamaica. He was raised a Christian. He had a very profound experience with a Christian mystic. He was with Papa G, and he said, I want to know God. Right? To which Papa G responded, if you want to know God, you must vanish. Completely took him by surprise. He was so angry about it that he was going to leave. But it was so hot, he just had to sit down outside for a while. And he disappeared. He vanished. And this is what has to happen in order for that to be understood. So I will tell you, this was a quote from Buddha. This is what Buddha said about himself. Not very well known, but he said, when I attained the great, unparalleled, unequaled enlightenment, simultaneously all beings attained the perfect, unequaled enlightenment. So what he was saying was exactly what you just said. Yes. You can't help but see that everyone is the self. Even the idea that I'm not, that I'm separate, as unfathomable as this might seem, is also the self. Because nothing can have even the appearance of existence if it is not coming directly from that which is, right? Something no existence at all, right? Well, nothing, right? So anything that exists must, of necessity, draw its existence from that which is, even its temporary appearance. So even the illusion is the self. Every atom, every molecule, every quantum, every field, space and time themselves are the self. When you try to approach this from the point of view of being someone, a person who will wake up among many people with the potential to wake up, some which have, some haven't, right? You are seeing it as a personal, localized event, but the awakening is the end of the personal, localized, the end of you, right? You, as you know yourself to be, cease to exist. As Muji puts it, says the inquiry. How did he put it? I forgot. I forgot how he put it now. The moves. I can't remember now. It'll come to me in a minute. But what's happening is that you are removing the sense of self, right? So what I would encourage you to do is to recognize that the answer to that question is awakening. And it can only be perceived from the point of view of the awakening. If not, if there's a sense of a separate self, this question can't be answered. Because from that perspective, every answer will be received from that perspective. The one who starts the inquiry does not finish the inquiry, but is finished by the inquiry. The guy in the dream does not wake up, right? And if I'm in the dream, I'm the guy in the dream, then everything I'm experiencing is in my dream, including absolutely everybody else. And if I wake up from the dream, what happens to the everyone else? Poof, they are gone. They're not there either. And at that point, there isn't somebody else. There isn't anybody who's not awake. Because there isn't anybody at all. Right? What we perceive as somebody is in fact just myself, right? Another view of myself looking at myself, right? Now, this is inconceivable to the mind. This is transcendent, right? This is beyond experience or what can be known. So what you do then is continue the inquiry into your own nature, the nature of myself. When I know me, I will know everything else, right? When I know me, there are no more questions. There's only understanding, right? And every question that arises is always arising in the presence of the answer. They become in lockstep. You can't have one without the other, right? All duality, right? All duality has fallen away. So everything is seen in its wholeness, right? Which doesn't mean stuff doesn't exist. It means that it's always in its wholeness, right? Dark and night are two sides of this. Night and day are two sides of the same thing. Right? Up and down, two sides of the same thing. Everything is the yin yang intertwined. So does that answer it for you, my friend? Hendrik, hello to you, sir. So good to see you. Robbie, our man in Romania. It's okay when listening. Is it okay? Oh, it is okay when listening to spiritual teachers to disassemble their teachings, taking what fits rather than the whole message. Absolutely. If at some point you become completely trusting, the teacher has earned your trust, then it's okay to take in the things that may not make sense before. But you're always the last guard. You're always the last line, right? So no matter what any teacher says, it's got to become your own. And so you need to disassemble it, right? And there's, we live in a time that just has, it's chaotic. It's a marketplace. It's a smorgasbord of different ideas, right? So you can't just say, oh, this guy is the truth, right? I've had comments about criticizing me, what I have to say, because it doesn't match what somebody else said, right? Some of which is superficial, right? Because if they're speaking from the same place I am, then it may be wearing a different costume, but it's the same thing, right? And if not, well, one of us is wrong. Figure it out, right? Because ultimately, you're the only one that's going to decide what's true and what isn't, right? So never take any teacher at face value. Confirm it. Take it for yourself. Take it for checking. And if you do, and it confirms, over time, your trust in a particular teacher or a couple of particular teachers will grow to the point where the things that don't make any sense to you, you'll have enough trust that you'll ponder them and go, okay, well, he hasn't been wrong so far. So let me look at this and see what's there. And you may find out it is. It may not, or you may find out, I get it. Right? There are some teachers that if they say something, okay, I'll take it in, right? The Buddha being one of them. Right? So, so it's okay. What I caution against is hopping from one thing to another, right? Which is the way the mind distracts us. I need more information. I should have let's get a second opinion here. Or, well, this teacher's he's really happening now, right? He makes that, right? So you want to avoid just hopping around and noticing how the mind wants to do that, because if it hops around, that's a nice way for it to avoid going to the depth of yourself. Because remember, the whole point isn't to take on teachings. If the teachings remain at that level, or if that's all the teacher's asking you to do, then that teacher's not the real thing. The real teacher points you beyond the teaching to yourself. It is always a pointer back to you, to go to that which is beyond all teachings, right? The teachings are temporary. I don't care what they are. They're to bring you to yourself. Once you're there, you don't need any teaching, right? So collecting teaching is not the deal, right? This is, a survey of religions is not a spiritual experience, which is not an experience at all. It's the experience. It's that which goes beyond all experience to, it is just myself. I just am, which is not even an experience. So does that answer it for you, Robbie? I'm sure you tell me if it doesn't. Hey, Dale in Massachusetts. Milo. Hi, Milo. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. We fight a lot at home, and I feel that the energy is really bad and aggressive here. Would it be good to clean the energy in some way, like burn incense, herbs, etc.? Or are there any other ways? All of that is good. Any effort we make wholeheartedly, right, out of love and compassion to purify an atmosphere is going to have an effect. I have nothing against rituals. I'll do that sometimes, going to play. Matter of fact, even a couple of times I've done it in people's homes. You just kind of walk around, because you can just kind of feel the energy. And had some really strange experiences come. But the most important place to do that is the internal. Burn your own inner incense all the time, as the desire for the purification of your own perceptions, right? So that if the energy is really bad, you don't participate in that energy. And I don't mean just being aloof from it. But you've become so internally safe for yourself that this energy can get transmuted, right? Because remember, all this negative energy and aggressiveness and stuff all comes because our bodies and hearts do not feel safe. That's it. That is the source of all of it. Because it is not natural for human beings to be aggressive, to be angry, to be negative. It's not natural for us. It's only because we get squeezed. We don't have the freedom to simply be ourselves. And as a result, we don't feel safe. It's not safe to be me. It's not safe to be here. We do not have that feeling of safety. So the most significant way of cleansing the atmosphere is cleansing the internal atmosphere by making it safe to be yourself. This is what I call inner reconciliation, which is the process I created for doing that. And I do classes on it. I'm doing one that's starting in about a week, a very intensive one. But I have home study classes and a lot of videos about it. Matter of fact, there's one on YouTube right now where Evan and I did a demonstration of how it works, and it's all about safety. Right? You don't feel safe. If you don't feel safe, you're going to be defensive. You can get aggressive. Somebody else can get aggressive, because what is aggression? But trying to fight. And why do we fight? Because we feel threatened. Why do we run? Because we feel threatened, right? What if there was a way to diffuse that feeling of being threatened, right? And of course, when somebody's aggressive with you, yes, it's going to feel that way. But the less we're doing that to ourselves, the more we've made it internally safe for us to be ourselves, right? Which means not looking at myself as something broken that needs to be fixed, right? But this remarkable and miraculous energy that is constantly evolving and growing, and yet at its center is something absolutely still and stable. And it is that stillness and stability that is the essence of the safety, which is not conditional, doesn't come and go. So that energy can embody itself in burning incense, prayers, mantras, herbs, all of that. But the power of the ritual is not in the ritual itself, right? That power is in you, right? When I would do a house clearing, right? I recognized that it had nothing to do with the incense, right? It's just kind of part of the ritual. It brings us a sacredness to it. It brings a focus of attention to it. But the real power was the internal sensitivity and the internal capacity for transmuting energy. Because that's all it needs. The energy is in this form because it feels unsafe. If safety becomes established, it's going to transform. That's what it does, right? It adapts. And energy does nothing but transform, right? and why doesn't it transform? Because the environment won't let it. Simple as that. You change the environment. You reconcile with yourself, right? And the end result is that an inner safety emerges. When an inner safety emerges, it is safe for the system to begin to dissolve and discharge old traumatic material, and thus give you access to inner resources. And that's the whole of it. So I'm going to put up here. This is the upcoming event I have. Do a little bit of shameless promotion. Of course, these classes are how I manage to keep doing satsang every week for free. Oh, I can't wait till we're done with capitalism. What a waste of time and money. So does that answer it for you, Milo? Can I just call you Milo? Instead of Milo. Positive Petty. God, every time I say that, I have to say it with an Irish accent. I just can't help it. GP, could you think of another name for the transmutation of perpetual energy so that kids could understand it? That's a transmutation of perpetual energy. Yeah. What's that, Dad? I would do it just by example, just telling them 1 minute they want to be on the swing, the next minute you want to be on the slide. Nothing, right? Just notice how naturally, we go from one thing to another, right? They don't need to know about energy. They don't need about transmutation, right? Because the fact of the matter, they're already there, right? They're already doing it. They don't have a concretized sense of identity, and as a result, they're not tied to anything. So they're not, they're not debating whether or not they want to go on the slide now when they're on the swing. They just do it, right? I was with my granddaughter yesterday, and we were at Green Lake. I rented one of those little pedal boats, right? So we go out into the lake. She was really excited about it. We're out for about 20 minutes. And I'm done, Baba. Let's go back. That was it. I rented it for an hour. And when she's done, right? Okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like this puzzle. I'm going to do this now. There's nothing absolutely holding. They're already that flowing. They are already the very embodiment of the transmuting of perpetual energy. And they are perpetual energy. So you just have to say, first off, let's put it in where there's something there. They're upset about something, right? And you want to comfort them, right? Well, the first thing you do is simply allow them to feel whatever they're feeling, right? You should never say, shouldn't feel that, or instead, just it's an inquiry. Oh, what happened? Oh, tell me about it. What are you feeling, right? And just the space itself by which they have the freedom to just feel what they're feeling, no matter what it is the space in which energy transmutes, right? And maybe at some point you can notice, well, you felt really bad, and then you don't again. This will pass. It'll be okay. It'll be all right. And really, that's all that's needed. They don't need to understand any of this stuff, right? I wish we didn't have to understand this, right? And just be it like they are, but we do. And so we have conversations like this so we can point our adult heads back towards the undifferentiated state of consciousness, which is the state of children, right? And we might say, well, why did we have to leave it? Because we had to be able to see it consciously. We had to be able to understand it, so that when it is once again gained, it comes with the power of wisdom, and not just the innocence of children, the playfulness of children. It also has that power of wisdom, and once regained, it can never be lost. So thank you, Positive Patty. Thank you for that. I hope that helps. I really can't come up with just a term for it, because all words for children are, meaningless, really. It's just going to go in and be, it's just going to go in and fit in whatever context, they have, right? You might, Elsa's transformation, right, into the Snow Queen, right? That would be an example. It would work great with my granddaughter, right? Because sometimes she'll show up dressed up as Elsa from Frozen, if any of you aren't familiar with that. I wasn't until I had a granddaughter. Now I know every song in it, in both English and Cantonese, as I've watched it with her 100 times. Anyway, Karen. Hello, Karen. Hello, GP. Do you belong to desire and pain? Oh, do desire and pain automatically together, right? Excellent question. They can, right? They are, humanly speaking, in terms of the human form, desire and fear go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other, because with every desire is the fear that it will not be fulfilled, or the fear that it will be, if it is fulfilled, it'll be lost. And that's inevitable, right? That's simply the nature of the flow of energy. It's the yin yang. You can't go without it. Now, the pain or the suffering that emerges from that is completely dependent upon the amount of attachment we have to the suffering and the amount of resistance we have to the fear. So I'm clinging to this thing that I want, this desire. And the clinging, of course, is created by our belief that somehow I have to get this in order to be happy, right? If that belief isn't there, right, a desire arises. It can be fulfilled or not fulfilled, but recognizing that it has nothing to do with my happiness, just my experience, right? That is the changeless underlying contentment. That's a fixed aspect of my being, and desires come and go. They change over time. I don't desire the same things now as I did 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So they're relative, they come and go. And if a desire arises and you know that, well, it'd be great if I have it, and it's, no harm, no foul if I don't, now there's no attachment. No attachment, no fear, right? Because there's no dependency now, right? There's nothing it can bring me, right, that I don't already have. At which point it simply becomes pure experience, right? And life is about experience, right? So I'll taste the honey, right? If there's no honey to be tasted, I go, where's the honey? I gotta have honey, right? Or romance, right? Or the things that mean a lot to us, that feel like they're an absolute necessity. If we just recognize that, of course, that feeling is going to be there. It comes with the human system. We are going to have desires arising. But the belief is that somehow that desire is critical for my life, creates the fear on the other side. And this is where the desire and pain arise together. They will be automatic. Because if I think that I must have this in order to be happy, and there may be another belief there that is already saying I cannot have what I desire because it's sinful or wrong in some way, or I'm incompetent, or I'm not good enough, all of the traumatic stuff that we experience, the very arising of a desire will become suffering, because the desire arises as it has to. It's the nature of life itself. And it rises in this atmosphere, in this environment that says you can't have it. And you can no more get rid of these desires than you can get rid of, growing hair or blinking or digesting food. It's right. It's inherent in life. But if there's this underlying belief, I cannot have it and I have to have it, right? You can see it's pure hell. Right? That's what hell is unrequited desire. It is unsatisfied desire. All of our desires are really one desire, and that is for permanent, unchanging happiness or contentment or peace. Okay? If we recognize that which is permanent isn't coming and going, we can see that a desire and its fulfillment will be nice. It could be even wonderful, right? But it isn't permanent, and it isn't the permanent happiness. So it is, and think of that happiness as, there's the ecstasy, some ecstatic event, emotional happiness, as opposed to permanent contentment, right? And that contentment remains unchanged. Now, if I root myself there, if I really abide there, I will live in this place of contentment, right? This place of self-knowledge. Right? And then the desires can come and go. They may be filled, they may be not, right? But their fulfillment will not overwhelm you and make you attached to it. And if they don't get fulfilled, you will not experience any suffering. Because even if they are fulfilled, it's temporary. It's gonna go away. Even the greatest experience you ever had in your life isn't here anymore. It's gone, right? But now if I get attached to that, I got to try to recreate it over and over again, and you can see you're creating suffering. The nature of life is this flow. Desire arises. It may get fulfilled. It may not. It may just dissipate, right? But if I just sit and watch it from the place of this permanent contentment, it will just be a celebration. It'll just be joy. I can enjoy everything about life without attachment. So your human life becomes a marvelous experience, right? But you, having the experience, are transcendent. You're beyond it. Does that answer it for you, Karen? Thank you for that. Beautiful. Suzanne. Namaste, GP. Namaste, Suzanne. I'm in a very difficult life situation and I don't think I can handle it. It seems overwhelming. Too many things to do. I don't know where to start and how to do the tasks that need to be done. I feel alone and overstrained. All right. All right, the first thing I want you to do is to simply close your eyes right now, bring your attention into your body, and just feel. For a moment, set aside all your ideas, all of them, even the ones you've just outlined here. Just temporarily set aside all of those, because they're thoughts. As if these thoughts never occurred to you. It never occurred to you that you're overwhelmed, have too many things to do, don't know where to start, right? Just set all of that aside. You can do it, right? It's grabbed your attention and really hooked you in because of the emotions that it's triggering. But just notice that it's possible for you to just bring your attention away, put it in your body, breathe, right? And don't, and just let it be there. Just to feel, right? Even set aside trying to find a solution, right? And just feel. And notice that there'll be a feeling in your body. And then the mind will say, you feel alone, right? Now put that aside, because the feeling itself didn't announce itself as aloneness. That was a label that your mind gave to it. And as a result, created a story about it. But just set it aside and just be with the feeling itself. Or that feeling that you've labeled as overwhelmed, right? Just feel it. And notice that you are handling it, right? If you weren't handling it, you'd passed out or died, right? But the mind is very resistant to it, right? Doesn't want to feel it. And we all learn that, okay, if I deny it or I'm overwhelmed or something like that, then somehow I'm not going to be feeling it anymore. And of course, the mind gets afraid of it, right? Of what effect it's going to have. It's probably telling you all sorts of stuff. If you don't get these tasks done, your life is going to fall apart. It's one thing after another. Now just put all of that aside and just feel the actual energy going on in your body, right? Feel your actual experience. And as you're doing that, now the mind may try to get very aggressive. That's okay. Just notice it, right? Because there's something there that is much, much more powerful than the mind. And that's you. The consciousness that is aware of it. And just feel. It's all you have to do. Breathe deeply, which tells your body it's okay. You can actually even put your hand on your collarbone and the soft spot right underneath your collarbone, just rub that a little bit. It's another way we tell the body, you're safe, it's okay. And notice how those thoughts aren't as strong now. They don't seem to have the same kind of power. Notice that your body has started to calm down, right? Right this moment, you don't need to know where to start. You don't need to know how to do what has to be done. Right this moment. Right? At the moment when you really do need to know, it'll be there. So just breathe, rub this spot right here. And just notice the effect that it's having. Right? That sense of calming down is your nervous system dropping out of its defensive position. It's dropping its defense. It's recognizing the environment has become safe. Because there's a spiral that happens. It looks like something has to be done. You don't know how to do it, right? So the mind goes, I don't know how to do this. And the body goes, what do you mean you don't know how to do it? We got to do this. And the mind, I don't know how to do it. And you can see it just spirals, right? It's a stress spiral that goes up. And the only way out of it is to break that. Just break the circuit, which is what we just did. Okay? So just stay with that, right? As you're listening to the rest of satsang. And every now and then you can stop rubbing that and just breathe, check in with your body. The body is an anchor, right? There's way more to the body than we realize, right? And in fact, it isn't what we think it is. It, in fact, is consciousness in a particular manifestation, right? And so just being present with that, the body represents the absolute here and now. To the body, there's no past and there's no future. There's nothing that has to be done. There's nothing that was done, right? The mind is always in the past and the future. The body is always right here and right now. It's immediate. Am I hungry? Yes or no. Am I warm? Yes or no. Right? Very simple, very direct. Right? And so we can anchor ourselves here, right? As an open door to that which is beyond the body. Does that help, Suzanne? Good. Everybody else, too. Anybody else who did that with me? It's very simple. It's a very simple way of just kind of withdrawing from the franticness that the mind can get into. And we all experience it, right? Dale says, great question, Sean. I've always wondered the same thing, but could never quite understand the answer. Okay, I hope I answered it. Did I, Dale and Sean? I'll check down at the bottom, see if I got it. Mark, Francis. Sean, thank you once again, GP. Okay, so at least I got it for you. I don't know if I got it for Dale. Let me know, Dale. Hey, David and Elaine. Wonderful. There's Play On in Sweden. And Annette Rockstar. Hey there. Are you familiar with Joe Dispenza? And do you agree with his way to heal illness and traumas just by the art of manifestation via meditation? Thanks. I think on a certain level it does work. He has a certain level of perception, which I understand. It isn't the full Monty of the understanding of the non-dual understanding of reality. That many of these people, they've gone quite a distance from simply it's all physical, it's all manipulation of the body and the mind and that sort of thing, to an understanding that there's a far more subtle mechanism at play. But he's still locked in the idea of the center of consciousness and experience being the brain, right? And this is kind of where the human understanding is at this particular time, right? It's still very much stuck on the eye. Matter of fact, I got a little dialogue going with somebody who made a comment about my video, There Is No Person, asking, well, how does the brain understand? How does the brain perceive, right? And the answer is it doesn't, right? That the brain, like the world, is a concept. It's an object of thought. It is a projection. And therefore, it is nothing other than a manifestation of consciousness. And so it reflects consciousness. So it appears to be conscious, it appears to be acting, it appears to be doing things just like the body, right? But in fact, there is no body here. There is no mind here. There is no world here, right? There is only the self. And so I don't criticize it because it's a level of understanding that is way beyond where we used to be, right? The likes of him and Deepak Chopra and others that are kind of operating on that level. But non-duality transcends even that. It goes beyond that to reveal that there is nothing external that is influential or dominant. It is all projections of the mind. and to see that we don't have to anchor the mind in some physical form, which is the concept of the brain. Right? So again, I'm not critical. I'm just saying it only goes so far, and non-duality goes farther. Right? It goes all the way. It goes beyond all teaching and form to the transcendent, right? Which has no dependency on anything but itself. It is what is, self-existent, self-luminous, self-confirming, self-knowing, right? And your knowingness, the consciousness that is hearing my words, is that, right? There are thoughts that say it's something else, but they're not true. You are the self, and the universe and the world is you. Beautiful. Thank you, Annette. Steffi, namaskaram ji, and everyone. Do you have any advice for people who are sensitive and get influenced by the dynamics and energy of the collective consciousness? Thanks a lot. Yes, I do. And the answer is when we come to know who we are, when you know who you are, that is, the consciousness that is experiencing, right, you'll find that what is being influenced is the body-mind complex, thought, emotion, and sensation. And there's enough sensitivity in many people who are empathic and know it, right? Everybody has it, actually. Some people know it, some don't, right? But we're all influenced by the environment. I mean, everyone here has had the experience. Everyone, bar none, have had the experience of going somewhere and sensing in advance whether you're going to be welcome or not, right? Some place where there's some energy before we even enter the room. When we're on our way there, even thinking about going there, we're already reacting to the environment. So we are all actually one, and we experience that on the manifest level as being this kind of interaction of thoughts and ideas and consciousnesses, even though there isn't multiple consciousnesses. Right? Now, seeing that, we recognize that the consciousness is simply sensing through experience what the whole looks like, not just the individual. Now, when we are identified with the body, identified as a particular person, right, then we're going to tend to think that the feelings that are the reaction, the sensitivity of the whole system, which it is by nature, are in fact mine. I don't like them, and now I want to get rid of them, right? That is where we get identified with the form, and now those same feelings are no longer instructive or interesting or a potential for power and healing. They become a burden. They become painful. And I see all the time people talking about being empathic and taking on everybody's energy, right? And that's because they have an image of themselves as an empathic taking on people's energy. And that image of themselves is what's suffering. So we can see that is nothing but a self-image. It can fade. And now the entire experience can be there, even more so, more sensitive, more influence going on, but without affecting you in the slightest, because you aren't that image. And this is the key. When we disidentify with that which is suffering from it, right? When we identify the sufferer as a concept, as an idea, as a belief about myself, at that point, it all fades away. The suffering ends, right? It doesn't mean the influence, it doesn't mean anything goes away. No change in the external environment whatsoever is required, right? Thank God. Right? We think it is, which is why we're always trying to get rid of the feelings or buffer ourselves against it and that sort of thing. And so the only thing we suffer from ever is our identification with the false sense of self, which is the sufferer. Go look for the sufferer. You won't find it. Right? The sufferer isn't a thing. It's not an entity. It's a bunch of thoughts. The thought that says this external influence, right, is causing me suffering. Now it's just a thought, right? Now that thought creates a kind of a cascade of feeling that's an unhappy, a discontent feeling based on the experience, and believes that the experience is causing it, right? When in fact it isn't. The belief is causing it, right? Remove that. See that the sufferer is just a belief and not an actual entity. The suffering is gone. This is the only way it can be done. This is what Buddha was pointing at in the Four Noble Truths, especially the Eightfold Path, which starts. The very first step on the Eightfold Path to the end of suffering is right views, seeing things as they are. And he was clear that it was not the circumstance that created the suffering, but our belief in the sufferer. And as that belief dissolves, right, which it can happen even imperceptibly. In fact, it's going on for all of you. My job is to make it more conscious for you, but it's been going on, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't listen to any spiritual teachers at all. But you are, right? Which means that it's already happening, and we're just accelerating the process. And as that happens, the evidence in your life begins to appear that the world isn't what you think it is, right? All of that stuff, all of the circumstances that you believed were creating the problem begin to dissolve and actually become transmuted into exactly the opposite, the experience of just total love and acceptance, right? As you are. So hopefully that answers it for you, Steffi. Thank you for that very much. Martin, how can the act of transmuting energy and being more sensitive in general be learned? Nice. Transmitting energy and being more sensitive in general be learned. You don't want to try to learn it. You want to grow into it. Because if it's a technique that's learned, and I can now become more sensitive without having established your actual nature as completely free of and independent of all experience, the increased sensitivity will mean increased suffering. Because as long as there's a sense of a person there, it will have a reaction to it. It'll have stories about it. It'll have resistances to it. And the increased sensitivity will bring nothing but misery. It's like people who have those Kundalini experiences, right? And their lives are actually destroyed by it, right? Because they work this one area to have this rush of energy, which is supposed to be enlightenment. And in fact, it just wrecks their lives because it isn't enlightenment. It is just a release of energy before the understanding of the individual and the nervous system itself is ready to handle it. When that happens, you get a logjam, you get a stalemate inside, right? So I may sound like a one-trick pony. The answer is know who you are, right? Drop all lesser ambitions, right? Including, wanting to heal, wanting to improve the world. It's not that those things can't happen. It's not that they're not possible. And it's not that we should shut our lives off and go into a monastery. It's just keep the priorities straight. Everything depends on you knowing the truth of you. Everything. Because if you're living out ideas and concepts and assumptions about yourself that are not true, it is not possible to have a full harmonious life, is it? I mean, it's so self-evident, right? If reality is one way and I'm living as if it's a different way, it's not going to change to conform to me. It's reality. It's truth, right? It's what is. So it's not going to adjust itself, right? So it fits into my little world. I have to adjust my world to fit into it. This is the Tao, the way things actually are. or is for Buddha, the right views, which is the first step on the path out of all suffering. So come to know yourself. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness. And when he was referring to the kingdom of heaven, he was talking about the self, the kingdom of God, the reality of being, that which is, the imperishable, the timeless. Right? Make that the priority. And everything else will fall in line behind that. You will become more sensitive because you can handle it. Not because it was a technique you learned. Because the thing that creates our lack of sensitivity is the closedness of our minds. It's the assumptions we have about life. If I see myself this way, I'm not going to be sensitive to anything that isn't that way. But if this falls away, if all the boundaries fall away, I become infinitely sensitive. The entirety of the universe becomes accessible to me. Every human heart is just laid bare in front of me. And at that point, there will also be not just an ability to be more sensitive. There will be this perfect unconditional love in which what is sensed is transmuted into love. And that's the real nature of healing. Thank you, Martin. I hope that helped. Facebook user. Hello, GP. Hello, Facebook user. How to handle toxic people and family members. Wow. Stir up my powder here. Well, let's see. In a setting like this, in satsang, I have to speak in very general terms, where things like that, especially if there's like interpersonal relationships with family members, the kind of people you can't just like get away from them, it's like a friend or an acquaintance or something that becomes annoying. You can just do a lateral arabesque, but this is not, if it's family, it's people you're close to or people you work with, and there is no way out. It's easier for me to guide you to a solution when I know exactly who it is. And I don't mean by, putting exactly in things in here, because it's still general, working with me in a class or one-on-one or something like that. So I can really look at the details, the actual experience that you are having. So in a case like this, I will try to speak about it generally. And generally, there's nothing you can do about toxic people, right? Toxic people are toxic people, and they will be toxic people until they're not toxic people anymore, right? It's that simple. You can certainly come to see them, understand that the toxicity is just part of their conditioning. It's their own defensive pattern that they've gotten stuck in. They are suffering for it, and they're projecting their suffering on others, their negativity and all that stuff on others. So if you start from the premise that somehow you have to get rid of them or get them out of your life in order to handle them, well, you're going to be in quite a dilemma, right? Because there's nothing you can do about them, right? Now, if they're just an acquaintance and you can just kind of end the relationship, that's one thing. But when they're family or work or something where you can't, right, then it has to become a completely internal experience, right? So completely let go of the idea of they need to change or they need to be different, right? Leave them to God, right? They're having their particular experience, and there's no need or desire on anybody's part to control anybody's experience. You don't know what made them that way, but this is the way they are now, right? And I don't swim with sharks because that's the way they are, right? And if I found myself swimming with sharks, I would say, okay, it's very possible that in this moment, something will protect me from them, or I may be lunch, right? Now, if I completely accept that, completely take that in my heart, that's it. There it is. Notice there's no suffering in that, right? In order to handle toxic people, we have to remove from ourselves everything that would react to a toxic person, meaning there's something in us that is resistant to them, that is angry with them, that is looking down on them, or it doesn't matter what it is, right? There's something inside, right? In order for there to be suffering, there must be something in us that the external influence can stick to. If there's no Velcro, right, it just passes right through, right? So what's the Velcro? Well, the Velcro would have to be on a very subtle level. I don't want this. This shouldn't be happening. I got to get rid of these people. Just put all of those ideas out of your mind and just be absolutely present in the moment. Now, look really carefully. How often are these toxic people actually encountered? What is the actual term of experience that you have with them? Right? You're not experiencing them 24/7, right? Even if they're at work, right? You're not experiencing them the entire time you're at work, right? So even at work, maybe it's a couple hours a day, right? Or maybe a couple hours on a day where you have a meeting, right? So if the actual time you're experiencing them is this, and the time you're not is this, any suffering or any kind of thing that any kind of negativity in you that lasts beyond the time you're actually with them is all the mind. It's all memory. It's not real. Which means most of the time you're not experiencing somebody toxic. So claim that space. All right, I'm going with this toxic person right now, and then it'll be over, and then I'm letting it go. I'm not going to hang on to it. That was my experience at the moment. It's gone. Right? There's a story of the old Zen guy, the old Buddhist, and a young monk walking along a road after quite a heavy rain. And of course, in Buddhism, not in Zen, they were Buddhists, more Tibetan Buddhists. There's a rule that the monks they do not touch a woman. Period. Right? No interaction whatsoever. They can speak, but they cannot touch a woman. Right? That breaks the precepts. And they're walking along, and they come to this this place, which could be a crossing, but because of the rain, the river's very, very rough. And there's a young woman, a beautiful young woman on the side saying, I have to get across the river. Can you help me? And the old monk, he's very strong and big. He says, sure. Takes her on her back, walks across the river, drops to the other side, walks back again, and they start walking. Now the young monk is going, oh my God, he touched a woman. Oh my God. They walked on, and all day long. He can't get over this. Oh my God, how did this possibly happen? They go somewhere for the night. They finally sleep. The next day, it's still grinding when he finally can't help himself. He said, Master, I don't understand. You touched that woman. You carried her. And he said to the young monk, he says, how long was I carrying her for? He says, I don't know, 30, 40 seconds. He says, and how long have you been carrying her? If you're not in their actual presence, you're carrying them. Right? Do you need to? Absolutely not. And in that space of time, you can literally let go of all of that energy. And you'll find that the only thing that made that energy stick at all was your mind. The mind saying, it shouldn't be this way. They shouldn't be toxic. Well, everything is the self. I would say, if they shouldn't have been toxic, they wouldn't have been. So they should have been. And you got the experience of a toxic person. And there's no other way you could have gotten that experience. And now it becomes your experience to transmute into your own awakening. And so everything becomes this wonderful gift of the Dharma, right? Everything. Lovely, lovely, lovely Facebook user, whoever you might be, the mystery guest. Truth Loops, hello, beautiful soul surfers. Which one of us is real? Asking for a friend. You. That's all you have to know. You can't actually know if I am. I could be a complete figment of your imagination. Matter of fact, your whole life could be, right? You could be asleep on another planet, a completely different life form, you know, and every night you go to sleep and dream and have this whole life, just like this, right? You don't know, right? Everything you are experiencing could be a complete and total hallucination. But there's only one thing that can't be. Every hallucination, every illusion, every delusion must have something, someone there to have it. There is a reality. Which one of us is real? You. And look, from your perspective, do you know any other self other than you? So you are. Peter. Good evening, G. Hello to everyone again. I'm watching cartoons with my daughter while listening to you. While feeling and seeing all happening. Much love. Ah, yes. I did the same thing with my sons. Now I'm doing it with my granddaughter. You're kind of sitting there, and sometimes I even, get into it. I'm watching it. It's a good story. And other times, because I've seen it 100 times, it's all fresh and new for her. For me, I'm somewhere else. But I maintain my focus because she needs to feel my presence there, right? As does your daughter, right? As long as you're there, you're with her, she feels your presence. You can be a million miles away and there at the same time. It's quite beautiful. Ah, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Children are great. And we are all children. Hey, Nazarene. Beautiful, beautiful. Juliana, hello all. I feel short-winded and my heart rate is quite high due to stress. What can I do? Breath work, meditation, what else? Thank you. Well, all of the above. But right this second, you can simply bring your attention into your body, right? Because your body actually knows what to do. Don't have any resistance to it. Just bring your attention on your breath. Maintain presence, right? Don't turn this into a process that has to be done in the future. There's nothing wrong with having a relief right now, right? And just be present. Just be present with it. You feel your body speeding up, say, it's okay, it's fine, it's safe, it's all right. Just breathe. I'll often treat this the way, just imagine that you're sitting somewhere, maybe outside, and some very afraid or distressed little child comes running up to you. What would you do? You can see the fright in their eyes. Would you say, oh, you need some meditation, you need some breath work, right? What would you do? No, you pick her up, put her on your lap, hug her really tight, let her know everything's okay. You'd stroke her hair, say, it's all right. Yeah, it's all right. We're okay. And what'll happen, that message of safety will get in, it'll get across, and eventually the little one will stop. Maybe she'll tell you the story, maybe she won't, but eventually she's going to hop off your lap and run off playing again, right? Think of all the stress, the energy, the body in distress like that. And don't postpone it. I need another technique, another class, got to read another book. I need to practice pranayama or something, right? If those kinds of techniques come up in your life to learn, great, right? But you don't have to have them in order to stop suffering now. I'm about now. I'm a very impatient teacher, right? As I said, non-duality is the lazy man's religion. I am not interested in protracting anything right this second. And notice, just as you're doing that, as you're receiving the condition in your body as you would receive a distressed child, it's a shift of relationship, isn't it? And just notice the effect that has, right? You're out of your mind, you're in your body, you're present, you're giving it attention, you're giving it love. Just imagine if you were distressed and, somebody significant in your life just, oh, come on, baby, just hugged you, just held you, right, for a little bit. What's going to happen? It's going to melt away. So be that loving presence, right? It's okay. It's okay. The body does this kind of stuff. It's a reactive device. That's what it's supposed to do. So it's okay that it's doing that. Just be with it and just stay with it. And like I was showing, I can't remember what was I was showing this. Find your collarbone, either side, doesn't matter. The soft place underneath, just rub it a little bit. It communicates by touch to your body. It's okay. It's safe. Because remember, the heart rate racing and the body's feeling unsafe. It's feeling vulnerable. It needs to do something. It needs to run away. It's preparing to run away. Right? It's okay. It's safe. There's no danger here right now. Right? I'm safe. Right? So just keep that up for a little bit and see what happens. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Juliana. Getting a lot of doing more inner reconciliation today than I normally do. So let me put that up again there. Let me my shameless promotion, because it's how I keep the lights on. You go there to learn more about the upcoming training I'm doing. And this is a real training. It's a preparation to be able to facilitate others in this way and bring about healing for others. Although it's not a coach training per se, but it's the foundation. We want to make a foundation that everybody, whether you want it to be a coach or a healer or not, but if you do, this is where you start. Hendrik, when I'm nothing perceivable or conceivable, Nisargadatta, I only have to not touch all the sensations seemingly pointing to a separate self, and more joy begins to shine. Is this continued somewhere? Right. Okay. Apparently not. Okay. Yeah. You don't have to replace it with anything, right? As he said, just let go of false thoughts. There's no need for true thoughts because there aren't any. Thoughts are always a representation. So if you step out of thought, you're just with pure experience. And then you notice that there is something very real, which is me, that is perceiving sensation. There are sensations, and is me perceiving them. Right? The sensations come and go. I am not my sensations. It's so simple. It's so clear. Now, the mind resists this because we've been taught, I am my sensations. I am my thoughts. I am my emotions. I am my body. I am my memory. I am my beliefs. But that's just thought. And even thought is just perceived. Right? It comes and goes. You don't have the same beliefs you did 10 years ago. Right? So thought comes and goes, and you don't. So if thought, emotion, and sensation are all coming and going, and you're not, you are obviously made of some other substance. You are essentially different from those. And so as you become more and more that see that which is unchanging and perceiving is the true I, the nature of the perceiving itself begins to shine. And that nature is what we call love, wisdom, intelligence, creativity, joy, fun, celebration, right? the perfume of the transcendent self. The nature of the self itself gives rise to the experience of itself as joy, compassion, love, all the qualities that we all seek to know in our lives. And so that is the only thing that has to be done. Don't touch any thought about yourself. Simple as that. Simple as that. And you'll notice that that the mind is so used to touching thoughts, right, that there'll be a habit there. And so in the beginning, it may seem to require some effort and some discipline and practice, but eventually that just kind of fades away as becomes clear and clear that I am not that. I am this indescribable thing, which isn't a thing, that is the pure awareness. I am the point of cognition. I am the self. And what else could I be? Wonderful truth loops. I love what Muji says, be like two eyeballs floating in space without anything attached to them. Yes. Beautiful. Yes. He's the best. He's the best. Yeah, I have to say it. I have to put a plug in for my own teacher. Yeah. Wonderful. Yes, like two eyeballs just floating in space with nothing behind them. Just this plane of perceiving, right? That doesn't have a perceiver behind it. The perceiving is the perceiver, right? There's not perceiver as in someone who is perceiving. That's two. Perceiving and perceiver are one. And then eventually you can see that perceiver and perceiving and the perceived are all one. And the division between them is purely conceptual. Wonderful. Thank you, Truth Loops. Ida. Hello, Ida. Namaste, GP. You are a true gift. Thank you. Thank you so very much for sharing being and pointing us back towards the honey, the place beyond all knowing. You're so welcome. You're welcome. Andrew, do you think there's any kind of mass awakening event going on at this moment? I'll leave it as vague as that. Well, let me ask you this. Are you awakening? Right? Is everyone else here awakening? When you see that the awakening is not the result of something you did, but is just happening, I didn't plan on this. Awakening wasn't on my vision board, right? I wasn't doing mantras or praying to the saints. It came completely unsought and unexpected, right? That set me on this path, right? And I don't see it as a moment that happened, but as simply a theme that plays itself out in every aspect of life. That's all actually this going on, the motif of awakening. And so when you see it like that, you can say, yes, there is a mass awakening going on. When I recognize that it has nothing to do with me, right? That everything that led up to, right, the awakening and everything that's happened after that, I didn't have any control over that either. So what was it, right? Something outside of me was drawing me back to me. It's the only way you can think, and still is, right? As Rumi put it, the power that brought me here must bring me home, right? And so when you see that it is not a personal attainment, it's not the result of a process. It's not the result of anything else. You go, well, of course that's what's happening. That's the only thing that's happening. It's the only thing that's ever been happening. And so, yes. And at this moment in time, I think we are seeing it in a way that's never been seen before. Right? That your awakening and the awakening are one. And of course, at some point you see that your awakening is the awakening. You awaken from the dream, everybody in the dream is gone. And what's left is that pure awakeness. So I hope that answers it for you, Andrew. Hello, Patricia. Much love to you. Hello, Mary. Good to see you. Patricia said, I use this prayer a great deal. I would love to hear you expand upon it. Love your sense of humor, G. That radio is not amazing. Only what is heard from this special radio. Bless your heart. You're not going to let me off the hook, are you? You're just going to continue to like me. All right, Patricia's prayer. With the pincers of truth, I have plucked from the dark corners of my heart the thorn of many judgments. My own splendor, wealth or pleasure, duty or discrimination, duality or non-duality. Is there more? I hope so. That's beautiful. I don't see more. There were some dots there. Where are we here? Lost you there. Duality. They've got 3 dots there, but I don't see anything else, Patricia. I'll look through one more time, see if I missed it. No. Okay. So I'll just speak to it from there, just as that. It's a beautiful prayer, right? In fact, did you write that? Is it in a song? If not, it should be. With the pincers of truth, I have plucked from the dark corners of my heart the thorn of many judgments. I sit in my own splendor, wealth or pleasure, duty or discrimination, duality or non-duality. Yeah, the place of transcendence. Yeah. Even duality and non-duality are categorizations of consciousness, of mind. They're not the reality. There's neither duality nor non-duality. Right? We would speak of it in terms of duality and non-duality, but only as a pointer to that which is beyond all opposites. And since it's beyond all opposites, it neither exists nor does not exist. It is neither dual nor non-dual. Right? You sit in your own splendor, just the wonder of being. And it's not a personal splendor. It's the splendor of a million suns. It is the splendor of being itself, the wondrous, mysterious miracle of being itself. And yes, the pincers of truth, truth, for I is truth. With the pincers of truth, I, who is truth, have plucked from the dark corners of my entire experience, the heart and my experience of life made manifest, of truth made manifest, the thorn of many judgments, any judgment that has arisen from the idea that there could be anything other than truth, other than myself. And I, truth, sit in my own splendor, my own self-luminousness, my own self-awareness, my own self-validation, my own self-sustaining. I, truth, have plucked all that which is not true with the pincers of truth from the dark corners of heart. And my heart is the heart of humanity. Beautiful. I hope I've done that a little justice by doing a little bit of commentary on it. Mary says, lovely, Patricia. There's Jonas. All right, enough for the advertising. Take it off. Francis King, that was so perfectly put. Thank you. Good. Love from the north of Norway. Hello, Ida. Thank you so much for these glorious live streams. Awesome impact in my life. Beautiful. So glad. Ava, gee, your explanation about transcendence as well as an illusion, amazing. I will download this and make the extract I have on my laptop always available. Oh, you're welcome. Sean, thank you once again, GP. You're very welcome. I'm pretty sure that both GP are as close to teaching absolute truth as it gets. They're enough for me. Go. Oh, GP, me? GP. I see. Well, thank you. Thank you. I agree. I love Rupert, and um, I have a little bigger, more dramatic personality than he does. But yeah, he's the real deal. I love him. I would get to meet him at some point. Um, uh, Makija, hello G. Aaron from Canada, Canadian, I'm from Canada. A message of gratitude. Today is a great day indeed. Beautiful. Merck says, hello and good evening. A bit late to the party, but here at last. Stay calm, carry on. Oh, Merck, you sent me a friend request on Facebook, and many people have, but I have to point out that I've got like 5,000 followers, or almost. I actually have to get some. So if I can't accept your friend request, please. It's not. It's. I'm not casting you away. I actually can't. So it's amazing. 5,000 followers, and 25 of them actually see what gets put there. So at any rate, my apologies that I can't do it. Donnie Dreamer, hi from Gold Coast, Australia. Hi, Donnie. Good to see you. I think you're new. Yes, GP, got it. Perfect. Thank you. Francis says, actually, Joe Dispenza does not say that consciousness is derived from brain. He says brain activity is derived from consciousness. Chakra 2. So does Michael Beckwith. Yes, as I said, they're close, but they still engage with it. Talk the amygdala and the RAS and all those kinds of things. The brain and body are activity of consciousness arriving in and made of it. I don't know if they teach that, but if they do, great. Then we're all on the same page. I see him talking enormously about the neuroscience and all that. But it may be that both of them do it for exactly the same reason I do, that at a certain level, people, because they neuroscience is kind of regarded as, as being a truth, as being a fact these days, that maybe like me, they're just trying to get it at that particular level. I may not actually see that, but I've not seen much evidence beyond that. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. So I can stand corrected. I don't mind. Steph says, great, thanks. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Glad I could help. Mary, thank you for your answer to Annette about Joe. As my friend had attended one of his intensive and lost her personal point of reference and became ungrounded, she had to go to our local teachers and had much assistance to ground herself. It was a great learning experience for her. Interesting. Yeah. Yes. Well, it is not hard to create experience. It isn't. Ask any Las Vegas stage hypnotist. It is not hard to create an experience, right? The mind is very malleable. It is very suggestible, right? And so I take the position, and believe me, I'd done things like that, and I thought the experience was all there was to it, until I realized that it wasn't. And in some instances, I could very well have been doing more harm than good, and so I corrected that. There is a preparation that is necessary, absolutely a preparation that is necessary. This is why these kinds of things were, for thousands of years, only taught in monasteries and ashrams. They were not just put out there, right? For anybody to come along. They required the guidance of a teacher to take you through it and to prepare the whole energy system for the receiving of this ultimate insight. His intenses are not for the faint of heart. Yes, and on that note, I would just have to disagree with the approach. When I work with people in groups, live or on, there's none of that. It is completely coming from you. There's nothing takes you outside of what can happen in that moment. And I'll just leave it at that. GP, hi GP Bo, good to see you. Here I am leaving Gibson, BC on the ferry to Vancouver. Just a perfect place to sail, be in Satsang. Gibson, BC, I don't know that. I have taken the ferry between Vancouver Island and Vancouver City, and it's a 90-minute ride. Absolutely wonderful. Liza, thank you so much, GP. I have listened myriad meditations from all the hype sources available, but none soothe my soul as your meditation sessions, which I followed during quarantine. Oh, wonderful. I feel so lucky I came across you. Forever grateful to you, GP. Do you believe we need to set healthy boundaries? Why is it hard to say no? Is putting yourself first selfish? Absolutely not. Putting the false self first can be, right? Because the false self wants to make boundaries, and it's going to be very clumsy, right? Yes, we need to have healthy boundaries, but how do we set healthy boundaries? And why didn't we have them in the first place? Well, you didn't get them set because your parents violated them. They never honored the natural boundaries that we all have, which is my sense of self and my right to express myself and to be who I am. And it's really that simple. And for the most part, we were all raised in a culture that didn't acknowledge that, tries to force you to be what the culture wants you to be, rather than acknowledging and accommodating who you are. So it becomes this dance between the communal, the community, the social, and the individual. So the individual is honored within it. And so we learn to curtail our particular desires for the benefit of the whole, but not so much that we compromise ourselves. And this is the balance that we all have to come to. How one arrives at that when they've been violated, right? And we never learned how to set them. And so we can either be, some people come angry and they guard the boundary, like, and there's no joy in it. Others, it's weak, and people intrude all the time. I was more like that because I've been intruded on so much that I just had no idea how to do it. So this self-knowledge that I keep referring to naturally sets boundaries. It naturally knows how to say yes when it means yes and no when you mean no. But there's no way you're going to be able to do that until you know who you are, right? It's that simple. So coming to know who you are and setting boundaries are absolutely equivalent. And that is not selfish. To come to know yourself as you are is the epitome, the acme of self-care, right? Because when you know who you are, you know what'll satisfy you. You know what you care about and what you need. You become more competent at unselfishness because you're not trying to get anything from it, right? You're not in a relationship of any kind because you need something. You're in relationships because it's just an expression of your love, and you're providing the opportunity for them to express to you. And this is a very mature approach to get. Most of us are not very spiritually mature yet. And so we need things, we'll say, a psychological technique for setting the boundaries. But if there's not some discovery of your internal reality, it's going to be artificial. You're really not going to know how to set a boundary. What's me and what isn't, right? Which boundary should I set and what not? If we approach it purely theoretically or psychologically, we're going to be sitting there with a checklist every time somebody says something to me. Is it violating my boundaries or not? Let's see. Check. Ooh. Right? It's not intuitive. It's not instinctive. When it's coming right from you, there's no checklist required. You just know. So I emphasize over and over again, the answer to all problems is to know yourself. And in that knowing, you have permission to be yourself, right? And with that permission to be yourself, it doesn't become aggressive. It doesn't become assertive, right? It's also quite capable of compromising, right? In order for the benefit of the whole. But it's not a compromise of me. It's me actively engaged with others in love. right? And so it's never a compromise of myself, right? It's a compromise of this moment. It's a compromise for the sake of the whole. But there's a point at which if it starts to inflict on me becoming something I'm not, having to be somebody I'm not, pretend to be somebody I'm not, well, that's the boundary. Nope, can't go that far. It can't go that far. In relationship, especially, there's plenty of things that in a relationship you can overlook because it's not important, right? But if the relationship starts pressuring you to be somebody else, to drop characteristics that are inherent in you, done. Can't do it. You cannot do it, right? Right. And if you do, you'll simply be unhappy and you'll know it, right? Because you'll be acting out something that isn't you. So knowing who you are, and the boundary are one. And to discover that is the most unselfish thing you can do. So thank you, Liza. Thank you very much. And thank you for enjoying the meditations. I have them all, or most, not all of them yet, but most of them in my Patreon program. Another thing I do to raise money to keep this all going. And I keep them all there. They're also on YouTube, so you can get them, but I keep them. They're organized. They're in a place. They're titled nicely and the like. So if that's of interest to you, you can just go to my site, gpwalsh.com. Creative Revolution. Hello, Susanna. Always where I'm meant to be, late to satsang. There's no late because I am where I'm meant to be. Yes, absolutely true. You cannot be elsewhere. Only the mind will tell you you are because it's comparing here with something else and going, oh, it should be here, right? Put that aside and what's right. What's wrong with right now if you don't compare it to some other time, right? No comparison. Right now is perfect, which is the truth. I had this exact experience yesterday, pure toxic energy coming at me, and it did not stick to me one bit. It was amazing. Yes, yes, yes. That's because you've actually taken taken the courses from me, right? I teach. It's not the kind of thing in satsang I can point, right? I can point you to how it's done. But, the reason I give classes is because I can show you how to do it. I could take it through you so you actually experience it. Experience it a couple of times, it begins to become yours. So wonderful. And yes, I have seen the growth in you over the time we've known each other. Well, it hasn't been that long, and it's been remarkable. So glad to know you. Bo, GP, I just had an interference. I'm Ferry from Gibson Event. Otherwise, what a perfect place to be on the ocean and listen to satsang. Thanks for the opportunity. I love it. I love ferries. There's something so romantic about ferries. I'll sit up on my roof on my building, which overlooks Elliott Bay, and I'll just watch the ferries going back and forth. It's just like, I don't know what it is about them. I mean, they're just doom, doom, doom. They're just going back and forth and back and forth. But there's just something so real and romantic about it. Can I say? I'm hopeless. Nazarene, is emptiness absence of self? Emptiness, oh God, what a big word. Oh, what a big word. Wow. I appreciate your answer. Oh, sorry, with text with people situation. Really love your work. Oh, you're welcome, Peter. Is emptiness absence of self? Emptiness, in its true meaning, is the self. They are one and the same. Right? If we look at it from one perspective, it's emptiness, which means it is free of all attributes. It's transcendent. It's beyond all categorizations. Right? You cannot say it is this or that. Right? And so in Buddhism, they would use the expression emptiness. The Sanskrit word is shunyata, right? Which means a pregnant emptiness. Which you can give us that more depth. You can just feel in that the potential for everything, right? And yet It itself is just completely unknowable. That is the self. Now, in Buddhism, Buddha preferred to speak of no self. Because for most people, when they think of self, like even in your question, is emptiness the absence of self? You're referring to a personal sense of self, right? This person, the idea about I have of who I am, right? And because that's prevalent, right? Buddha would then say, to teach people, there was no self. And what he meant by that was nothing has inherent existence, right? It is all a manifestation of that which is, instead of using the self, he referred to emptiness, pure emptiness that was beyond. And in fact, it was beyond even the idea of emptiness and fullness. Even the idea of emptiness was too much of a limitation, right? And so you can go either way. In the Advaita Vedanta tradition, it's referred to as the self, the transcendent self, the transcendent I, the self-aware being. In Buddhism, it's the no self or emptiness, the pregnant emptiness, the potential for all things, but the pure awareness or Buddha nature, right? But it's not the emptiness of nothing, because there'd be no consciousness at all. Nothing would exist. What it means is that consciousness alone is. It has no form, it has no location. It is because it is beyond space and time, which are dimensions of their categorizations of concept of thought, and it is beyond all categorizations. So you could say emptiness is absent of all self, all sense of anything having inherent existence. And in Buddhism, they refer to that as there is no self in persons, there is no self in objects or things, and there is no self in teachings, including Buddhism, including Advaita Vedanta. Right? Everything is empty of a self. The utter reality is pure emptiness. It is transcendent. Gate, gate, pada gate, pada sangate, bodhisvaha. Gone, gone, gone beyond, gone completely and totally beyond. It cannot be conceived. Right? And yet, it is what you are. It is that simple sense of your own existence, which cannot be thwarted. And so emptiness is form, form is emptiness, non-duality, duality, emptiness, fullness. They all just kind of merge into this transcendent that one can call the self, one can call it emptiness, and then you go even beyond those words. What's best for me, the best name? Me. Make it personal. It's me. I am that. Right? Now it comes home. It's no more abstraction. It's me. Beautiful. Thank you, Nazrin. Sean, hey, GP, if you have time. Oh, we got the webcam girls again. Hot boys and girls. Okay, block the user. Webcam. That is so funny. Yeah, bad choice. It's a bot. There's not even anybody there. Let's see. Sean, AGP, if you have time, what's the sales pitch on inner reconciliation class from a practical level? If I join, I want to. It'd be good to explain why to my wife. Inner reconciliation is, you've heard my motto, end suffering, be happy, right? It's that simple. What is the cause of suffering? All suffering. It is a misunderstanding of our own nature, and thus an inner conflict, an inner fight going on within ourselves that makes us resistant to what is. We get in this state where things should be different. I should feel differently. My life should be going differently. Everything, right? And that's suffering. My disagreement with reality is suffering, right? This is what I'm about. I'm not about teaching a technique. I'm about ending suffering, right? And to end suffering, you need to know its cause. And its cause is seeing yourself other than what you actually are. Now, my experience of this, my own personal experience, and my experience of working with God knows how many others, is that to just think, okay, I am the self, I am emptiness, I'm pure being, is completely impotent against all of the conditioning and assumptions, all the stuff, the momentum of life that has built up. Right? Even Nisargadatta, a fully enlightened master, he said, the only obstacle I have is 81 years of accumulated experience. Right? So conditioning is nothing to just go to try to just kind of explain away. Oh, it's not real. There's no self. Nothing ever happened, right? That is incompetent and it won't work. Because of that, because I thought it did for a long time, right? And struggled with it, right? I finally found what the key was. And that key I put out in this program I call Inner Reconciliation, right? As long as we're at war with ourselves, we're trying to fix ourselves, change ourselves, right? In other words, that fundamental idea, something's wrong, there's something wrong with right now, and I've got to change it, is much more personal and intense because there's something wrong with me, and I've got to change it. And as long as that idea is there, which it is in every single one of us, because it's what happens, it is the original fall, it is the original sin, it is the original trauma that happens to all of us. I'm a lifetime trying to fix me, right? And I never get there. How can I, right? And the essential idea, the essential essence of this, that in fact there isn't anything wrong with you, right? The mind cannot conceive. Nobody believes that. Nobody in self-help believes that. Some may actually even pay a little lip service to that, but ultimately there's this, because it isn't a mind belief, it is an energetic assumption. There's something wrong with me. It got programmed in me very early. And so I've just developed a way to systematically get to the point where this can be seen not as just an idea, but as an actual experience. You feel the transformation that takes place inside of you. And you find that the resistance to the deeper question of who am I, right, now becomes it becomes potent. The resistance is diminished, and the question starts being asked from a completely different place, because your whole body and nervous system isn't defending itself, right? Because even if I'm seeking enlightenment because I think I'm broken, I need to be fixed, there's going to be a huge amount of resistance to that. This is the essence of it. This is the heart and soul of it. It's what I have discovered, which I am convinced is the essential root of suffering. It's completely congruent with what Buddha had to say about it. And it's simply a modern process-oriented way of doing that, of getting to that point. And the beautiful thing about it is that for some, it's the way to get to awakening. It's also, once an awakening has occurred, it's a way now of integrating it into your entire life, deepening it, the whole process. So it becomes a way of living from awakening rather than the path to awakening. And at any step along the way, it's inherently therapeutic. So there are people who are not interested in awakening at all, and they learn how they learn it because it shifts your inner relationship with yourself and thus with others. And so I've got therapists who are studying this and learning this and applying it in their in their practice. Scientists, I even have a doctor, right, that are looking at these kinds of things, at the nature of inner reconciliation, because it isn't a theory, it isn't an idea, it's not philosophical. It's something you can experience directly. When you shift your relationship with yourself from that of constantly trying to fix yourself, to actually listening and accepting in this moment everything that you're feeling, the doors begin to open. And that's why I call it reconciling. You're reconciling with your own nature. Whereas because of our conditioning, we're at war with our own nature. And how can you possibly experience anything but suffering if you're at war with what you are? Because you can't change what you are. It's the truth. And so, it's just kind of an invitation to be who you are, right? So I don't know if that's a sales pitch. I don't know how to do a sales pitch. All I can do is explain what it means to me, how utterly overwhelmed I am that, this came to me, and I could lay it, and I had the kind of experience that I could lay it out as a process. So thank you for giving me the opportunity for the infomercial. Let me put it back up there again for anybody who's interested in signing up for this. And I have home study courses, right, that are not as expensive as this. I've got free stuff on it, meditations and the like, all have this approach of inner reconciliation at their root. And at the root of inner reconciliation is non-duality. It's what I teach here in Satsang. So I've got different levels for different folks. This is a very concentrated experiential event. There'll be very little teaching in terms of theoretical, because that's already covered in the home study courses, and you get that when you sign up. So it's all very practical and experiential, and I'm doing it with my senior facilitator of it, who was actually with me from the beginning, who does it really, really well and differently than I, so you can get different kinds of flavors, so that you can experience it. And your wife can join too. Two of you can do it together, and I won't charge you double. Wonderful. David and Elaine, without seemingly having any questions, it's interesting to realize how relevant other questions and your answers are. Understanding it originates from the same source. Understanding that it originates from the same source dissolves any apparent boundary. Thank you for such beautiful clarity and insight in these pointings. You're welcome, guys. David and Elaine, wonderful. I do hope to see you soon. Understanding originates from the same source. Yes, it does. Yeah. That's the merging. It's not questions and answers disappear. You just realize they have at their same root, and it really is the self revealing the self to the self, which is the joy of the self. The self knowing itself is, whoa, cool. Rejoicing in its own infinite, ever unfolding nature, right? So it lives in this state of constant bliss and constant, and it's you. The right name is you. Sam Johnson. Oh, wow. Oh, thank you, Sam. Welcome. Welcome. Oops. Jumped ahead again. Where was Sam? He was the last guy. So, there's Patricia. Brings to mind John 1:1. No? Whoops. Sorry, don't know my Bible that well anymore. You'll have to. In the beginning is the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Is that it? Ava says, thank you, G, for your amazing great. Yeah, you're so welcome, Ava. So welcome. From the, I can never remember, Ashtakara Gita. I can never say that one. I got the Abadut down, I got the Reboot down, I got some of them down. I just cannot say that word. Yes, very good. Thank you, Sifu. Sifu says, Penny, there's only listening, no listener. Sean, come join us. Nazarene, thank you. You're welcome. Yes, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I mean, that's the non-duality in a nutshell. And it seems as though John got that. And he seemed to be the only one that does. And his gospel is the last one written. And of course, it wasn't written by him. None of them were. They're all many, many years later set down, and they all came in order. His is the most different. Yeah. He doesn't start with the virgin birth and any of that history of that stuff. He starts with that because he seemed to see Christ as the manifestation of truth. So, all right, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Hopefully some of you will join me in the upcoming class. In the meantime, love you all, love you all, love you all. Namaste.